Second.
Motion by Ms. Amy, come out of executive session,
Thank you.
second by Pat. Any objection? I see none, so moved.
I move that we accept
Approved.
approve the disability of Mr. Michael Hughes
As a service-connected
as a
disability.
service-connected disability.
All right. We got a motion by Ms. Amy to approve the service connected disability for Michael Hughes, and his second, from Ms. Mahandra, second. Mahandra, any objection? I see none, so moved. All right,
Legislation.
legislation.
Cover that.
Number 11, yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, the legislation is somewhat of a mixed bag this year. We've had some really good success with our Senate Bill 16 that the board sponsored. Senator Gerald Long from up in Winfield authored the bill for us. The bill was heard at the Senate Retirement Committee on April the 15th, last Monday, and was approved without objections. It's gone through the floor of the Senate and has been referred to the Committee on Retirement in the House. And it will be heard whenever the committee so puts it on their agenda. Have not seen any agenda assignments for the House. They've not even had a meeting yet this year. So don't anticipate any problems.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that bill number. Which one?
16.
You're talking about 16?
Yeah,
Okay.
Andrea just said that House retirement is scheduled for tomorrow.
Yes.
They must have just came up with that today. Yeah. I'll check it just before the meeting. So I'll be down there for that meeting tomorrow. I don't anticipate any problems with that. Just to remind you, Senate Bill 16 clarifies the option that troopers have as they retire to roll a lump sum of money either from an IBO, an initial benefit option, or from a backdrop selection that they make. Roll that lump sum of money over to Empower, who is a third-party administrator for us, and this would allow them to defer the taxes on that rollover money until the money is actually taken out of the Empower account. So don't anticipate any problems with that. Are there any questions on that bill? Obviously, you know, that's a very important bill to us to get that clarified meaning of the third-party administrator relationship there. Senate Bill 13 is a bill that affects our system, and it was brought to our attention. It's by Senator Ronnie Johns from over around Lake Charles. Senator Johns contacted us probably a month or so ago wanting to know about a surviving spouse who had given up her benefits for her husband's benefit. Her husband was Mr. Keys. The lady's name was, I don't recall her first name, Kim. Do you recall it?
For some reason I want to say Catherine, but don't hold
It may be Catherine. But Mrs. Keys signed a document back in the early mid-'80s giving up her rights to a survivor's benefit of a trooper who was killed in the line of duty because she was getting remarried. And under the laws that were in place at that time, a surviving spouse of a trooper killed in the line of duty who remarried before 55 gave up their right to the benefit. And she gave that right up in writing, and we were able to find a copy of that, and we have that in the records that she did give it up. We did pay a benefit to her two minor children until they reached their majority, and I think that was probably sometime in the mid-'90s when the last one reached their majority. So Mrs. Keys has contacted Senator Johns, and he has written a bill, Senate Bill 13, which would provide for a provision that a surviving spouse under certain specific circumstances, it's special interest legislation, which typically we don't like to see that, but it would allow Mrs. Keys to begin to receive prospectively going forward, not having to go back and pay her for back benefits that she would have missed, but we would begin to pay her going forward if this bill is approved. This bill was approved in the Senate and has passed the Senate floor and is headed over to the House Retirement Committee. There will be a cost associated with it. Her benefit, Kim, I don't remember exactly what it was. It seems like it probably was in the ballpark of maybe a couple of $1,000.
Well, it was at that time, but then we'll have to,
Cost
we
of
haven't
living.
made the adjustments yet for any cost of livings that may have been received since then, so we'll have to do those calculations.
And if this bill is, passes the House and Senate and is signed by the governor, which I would expect it to be, Colonel Reeves was down at the meeting for this benefits for Mrs. Keys and was speaking in favor of it. I was down there and spoke on behalf of the retirement system. So I don't see any problems with that benefit being passed and signed by the governor, although it will have a cost to the retirement system since we had not anticipated this. The reason I think Senator Johns felt like he wanted to do this for Mrs. Keys was current legislation after 1999 allows troopers who were killed in the line of duty, their surviving spouse can remarry. And for some reason, that prior legislation had that caveat, and still get the benefit, even if they remarry. But the old legislation that Mrs. Keys was living under at the time she gave up her benefit did not allow her to keep her benefit. So that's why Senator Johns did it, and I would have a hard time.
This is strictly line of duty, does.
Line of duty death, very restrictive, and I don't know how anybody could deny somebody whose husband was killed in the line of duty an opportunity to receive that benefit. You guys know it better than I do. You know the dangers that you face every day and what might happen. And to reassure you that your surviving spouse can have that benefit, and if she so saw fit to remarry, that would be her business. So that's the reason behind that.
And you don't think that this is gonna affect anybody else? Y'all?
No.
Yeah, we don't think so. We looked through our records, and I don't think this is gonna affect anybody else, but you know yourself, anytime we have special interest legislation like this.
It blows it open.
It
Yeah,
can.
sometimes you can miss one of them, but we do plan to look at all of our records to make that determination once the law
I would
passes.
imagine, but I guess you wouldn't have capped who died in one, but y'all,
But we've
y'all would
been
have
paying,
it.
but we've been paying that benefit since '99.
Yes.
To all of the
To
ones
all
who are
of
killed in the line of duty, their surviving
Mhm.
spouses, yes.
But as far as finding past people who were killed in the line of duty, I would imagine you just pulled their names, huh?
I will, and
Yeah.
actually, when we were trying to find the name of this lady, the way that I found it was I went on the state police's
That's what I thought.
memorial
Yeah.
page, and
Yeah.
I kind of looked, started from there and dug through our records.
Line of duty deaths, plus they remarried
Yeah.
before
Right.
the age of
Yeah.
55. So it's very
But-
specific.
Mm-hmm,
Uh,
yeah, that's true too.
I'll keep you posted on that bill as it goes through the House. I'm not sure, I don't think there'll be any problems with the House side. A third bill that affects this system, or could affect this system, is Senate Bill 14. That's a bill by Senator Peacock, the chairman of the Senate Retirement Committee, and it would provide term limits for trustees. A lot of discussion. The firefighters had many representatives down there, and they talked against the bill. After hearing a lot of the arguments, both pro and con, in fact, several of the senators on the committee had problems with the legislation. Senator Cortez, Senator Long had problems with the legislation. Senator Peacock decided to voluntarily defer the bill, and he did that. Don't know if he's going to bring it back or not. I got a feeling that I think he's seen that it probably is not a good bill. And I think the biggest argument that the firemen presented was that the election box is the ultimate term limit. If you're not doing your job as a trustee and you don't get reelected by your constituents, you're term limited every time you run for office. And I think that's the feeling that most of the people in the room had that day. So that bill has been deferred. I don't know if it'll come back. Probably the most challenging bill for us this year is House Bill 28. It will come up, I assume, probably tomorrow. I haven't looked at the agenda, but it wasn't on there. That's probably a good thing. House Bill 28 by Representative Barry Ivy, who happens to be my representative out in the central area. Representative Ivy has provided a bill for a hybrid retirement plan for the 4 state systems. It would include, obviously, the state police as well as teachers, state employees, and school employees. And the plan as a hybrid is just that. It's a hybrid of a defined contribution plan, like a 401k plan in the private sector, and a defined benefit component. 2 components to the hybrid plan. The defined contribution plan would have a contribution rate of 12% for the troopers. 10% for the state employees, teachers, and school employees. So we would, on the defined contribution component, the trooper would put up 12% of his salary, and these would be troopers hired after July the 1st of 2020. It doesn't start until 2020, but that's a year away. So based on that, they would put up 12% of their salary, and if the state saw fit to match, they could match it as the employer for the troopers and other state employees and make their contributions into the defined contribution component of the hybrid plan. And whatever you put in there and whatever the state puts in and whatever you earn from your investments would determine what that element of your retirement plan would ultimately end up being. In addition, it would have a defined benefit component, similar to the system that we have now, except it's very dramatically different. The accrual rate today is 3.33%. You earn that amount each year. You take your final average salary over the 36 months if you're a older trooper, and if it's a new trooper, it's over the 60 months. And you take that and multiply it by your final average salary times 3 1/3. The new system, the defined benefit component, would have an accrual rate, instead of 3.33%, it would have an accrual rate of 1.33%. It would be very comparable, I think, in most people's mind to a Social Security benefit. It would not be something that would provide a large fixed component of your retirement, but it would be something in the ballpark of probably $1,000 to $1,500, $2,000 max for most individuals, depending upon how long they work. But those two things would be the retirement plan for a trooper hired after 7/1 of 2020. We have not talked about this, so I think I need to get your clarification, your approval of how you want us to vote on this when we go down there before the House Retirement Committee. I don't think it'll be tomorrow, but we'll be down there for the meeting when this is heard. In my opinion, this would be the very worst thing that could ever happen, in particular to the state police, with the dangers that are prevalent today in today's society with people who are in hazardous duty positions. To expect them to go to work for a plan like that and to have confidence that they're going to be secure in their retirement years and their family's going to be protected would be detrimental. And I say that because, keep in mind, this is only for the 4-state system. Sheriffs and municipal police, who are the two competing agencies with the state police for qualified people, would not be in this system. They would continue to have their same defined benefit plan that you now have today. So I would be open to
The other thing
whatever.
you gotta think about is, what about line of duty deaths, what about
Yeah.
service-related injuries?
Most of those components, I haven't completely read all of the bill, it's a very long bill, but most of those stipulations in the bill would stay pretty close to the same for
Without the funding.
disabilities, for deaths in the line of duty, things like that.
But without the funding.
I don't know how that funding would work, we'd have to see. But my recommendation to you as the board would be that we oppose this legislation on your behalf. I think it will make recruiting and retention of troopers in the future extremely difficult, if not impossible. Mr. Chairman.
I'll take a motion.
I won't make a motion to oppose.
No, sir.
Second by Kevin. Any objection? See none, so moved.
Does anybody have any, you're active guys, what are your thoughts about it? I mean, I'd like to have some direction as far as comments that I could make and share with Representative Ivy. I think I have a good relationship with Barry. Don't always agree with him. We're individuals and we have different points of view, and I represent the retirement system here. But I would certainly like to hear whatever thoughts you have. I know, Jay, you represent the troopers from the LSPA perspective. What are your thoughts? Have y'all talked about this?
We never gave any serious consideration because we're dead set against it. I mean, I just talked to one of the, I think it's the only state that does not have any kind of defined benefit for a state police agency is Alaska, and they can't retain anybody. And they're cherry-picked all day long every day because they go out there and do this dangerous job and there's no guarantee for them at the end of the day. And I just don't know how we would compete to recruit people, much less retain them once they get in the system if there's nothing promised to them at the end.
Not only with the competition from your local and your sheriff's offices, but you got other state agencies as well. I mean, when I say other state agencies, outside the state of Louisiana agencies, I mean, you're still gonna compete with your neighboring states with Texas and
Right.
Arkansas, and as it is right now, part of our plan, I mean, we're recruiting people from New Mexico and Texas, and you know, we're being able to draw them in with this type of salary benefit package.
Mm.
Byron, how about your view on CSTC?
And you're right.
I tend to agree with you. I hadn't talked to, the membership, but I'll go back to them. And,
If you can, I'd appreciate any feedback you can give me.
I sure will. I'll talk to you.
I can't imagine any active trooper not understanding and not wanting to protect their system.
We already have such a decrease in applicants, generally speaking, that want to come do this job because of all the perils that you mentioned a while ago.
Well, and I think too, part of working for state, you don't get the private money working for the state, private level. Most people don't. And so one of the attractions is you have a nice retirement at the end. And you take that away, you make it like Social Security, then not only are you gonna have trouble retaining these guys, you're gonna have trouble retaining people for anything. So,
Well,
You know.
like I said, you see, we get them, because last academy, we had 12 people to pick from Troop C, and as a matter of fact, I think I gave 2 positions away to go to the academy because I didn't have enough qualified people, and, you know, I'm not gonna settle for whoever.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a recommendation, of course, the colonel picks the people that
mhm.
it was, so I, 12 people to pick from for my troop area, and that's 5 parishes.
Wow.
So it's tough, nobody wants to do this job anymore.
Mhm.
I know when I applied 20 years ago, I mean, there was a couple thousand people.
Yeah.
I think last class was only over 200.
I think they're 200, right? So,
Yeah, I think it was 200.
so if you say it's 200, and it's probably around that number. If you take out all the law enforcement that are getting 3 1/3 from the sheriff's office and the PDs, you can go ahead and knock that down and maybe less than 100 easily.
Mhm.
And we will be in a bind, a big time bind.
Well, I appreciate your direction there. I'll be glad to let the committee know, and in particular, let Representative Ivy know your feelings.
All right, any other legislative?
No, sir, that's it.
Any questions on legislation? All right, moving on, item number 12, approval of retirement drop, elimination of war benefits.
I'll make a motion to do approval.
Motion by Kevin, we approve the benefits in Lobo. Second by Jay, any objection? See none, so moved. Item number 13, any other business?
Yes, sir. Kim, you've got that contract with the actuaries.
Yes, we have, the new contract with the Currens, the fees are all the same, and, we received this from Greg, last week? And so the board will need a motion to allow Erwin to sign the contract with the actuaries.
Motion by Hack, second by Ms. Amy, to allow them to sign the contract representing the board. Any objections? See none, so moved. Any other business?
No, sir, that's it.
Just to follow up, so I remember to ask each time, I know it's only been a few months, but any movement or any word back from the Attorney General's office on the opinion?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking, reminding on Dean Coates' situation.
Yes, sir.
I've been questioned Rebecca Wisbar, who works there with Denise, and she's responded back. Denise, you might want to tell them what you heard.
Oh, I actually forgot to ask her about the
Okay.
updates.
What she
did
told
give
me,
an update.
she did get a response from the Attorney General. She had to follow up because she had not received anything from the Attorney General. If you recall, Dean had some issues that the board requested that we get an Attorney General's opinion for. Rebecca was told that we would have an opinion within about 30 days.
Okay.
So the opinion should be forthcoming before our next meeting, and if you'd like me to, I'll be glad to get in touch with Dean and let him know that kind of where we're at. I'll try to keep him informed as we go through this process because it has been rather lengthy. That goes back to probably February or so when we begin this process, so I'll be glad to contact Dean and let him know that we're expecting an opinion.
Yeah, I think we appreciate that. All right.
moved.